Now, let's look at the last unit of English language, which is sentence. To some people, sentence is the most important unit of English language. I don't know why, but it's very important. It is, but then I should say it is just one of the units, because all of the units are important. The letters are important, the syllables are important, the morphemes are important, the phrases, the clauses, they are all important. They all come together to make up the sentence. So, a sentence is a complete group of words that expresses a complete idea and that includes a subject and a verb. You may be wondering why each time I say words, I follow it up with expresses, which seems like a fault in Concord. But you should note that what determines the verb here is not words, it is group. So it is about a group which expresses. A group which expresses. But then when we get to the point of Concord, I shall teach you about the rules that determine complications like this. But then let's look at sentence. Sentence. It's a group of words that expresses a complete idea and that includes a subject and a verb. What is important to note here is that a subject must have, a sentence rather, must have a subject and must have a verb. It therefore implies that a sentence doesn't have to be long. A sentence can be a word. Okay, maybe not a word. A sentence can be two words, like Jesus wept. You'll have heard this sentence in your Bible. Jesus wept. Jesus wept. Jesus here is the subject and wept is the verb. So in line with this definition of sentence, this qualifies to be a sentence because it has two words which are both subject and verb. And as we have said here, a sentence must have a subject and a verb. But where there are complications in English is that sometimes even a clause is defined just as a sentence. And that is where English is not like science. There are no indismantlable rules. English is a field in social science, and in social science there is a concept called polysemicity. Polysemicity. It is the capacity to define one thing in different ways. So understanding of concepts, even in English, can vary. The rules of English are sometimes not in unison, but with regards to sentence, this qualifies as a sentence. Also, a sentence may not just have a subject and a verb. It may also have an object. An object. So, Jesus wept here can be stretched further to include Jesus wept before his followers or disciples. One thing you must note is that a sentence must always start with a capital letter. And also, a sentence must always have a full stop. These are non-negotiable rules of English language. Well, a sentence may not always have a full stop if it is not a statement. So a sentence may have a full stop, a question mark, or an exclamation mark, depending on the kind of sentence that it is. So a sentence may be a question, and in that case, it doesn't need a full stop, it needs a question mark. A sentence may be an exclamation, and so it doesn't need a full stop, it needs an exclamation mark. Are you following? Now, let's go on. In this case here, Jesus wept has been stretched further to include object, which is the followers. It means Jesus, which is the subject, wept, which is the verb, before his followers. It means the object of that weeping is the followers. The object of the weeping. If I say Tony gave his books to his friend, Tony is the subject, gave is the verb, and friends will then be the object, because friends here refers to the recipient of that action. So whoever is at the receiving end, or whatever is at the receiving end of an action, is represented by objects in a sentence. Now we shall look at types of sentences. There are various types of sentences. The first we shall consider right now is simple sentences. Simple sentences. This kind of sentence is said to be one that has one subject and one verb. It has a subject and a verb. Or simply put, it has subject and it has verb. Yeah. So when you see a sentence that goes this way, Mr. John likes his wife. Mr. John likes his wife. It's a simple sentence because it has one subject, who is Mr. John. It also has a predicate or a verb, which is likes. And you may also say it has an object, which is the wife. But basically, it doesn't even need to have an object. As long as a sentence has a subject and a verb. A subject and a verb. It qualifies as a simple sentence. In some cases, a simple sentence may also have two subjects. When I say, you and I will go there tomorrow. You and I will go there tomorrow. This is a simple sentence. Because it is not, the simple way I like to explain this is that a simple sentence is any sentence which is not stretched beyond limits. A simple sentence is any sentence which is not stretched beyond limits. It is a sentence that you can say in one breath. That's the simple way I can put it. A simple sentence is a sentence that expresses one thought. A simple sentence expresses one thought. When I say, I love to play volleyball. I love to play volleyball is a simple sentence. Oh, I love to jog. Egusi is my best food. These are all simple sentences because they express one thought. They express one idea. You can say these sentences in one breath. But when I say, I love to eat egusi, and after I eat egusi, I always fall asleep. This is not just one thought anymore. It is not just one idea anymore. It is now complicated. I love to eat egusi, and after I eat egusi, I always fall asleep. Another, you may call such sentences complicated, but we shall get to that point shortly. The second type of sentence that we shall look at is the compound sentence. Compound sentence. One thing you need to note is that a compound sentence has two independent clauses. Two independent clauses. A compound sentence has two independent clauses. An example is this. I love rice, but I eat beans every day. Full stop. This is a compound sentence because it has two independent clauses. If you remember, I said an independent clause is a clause that expresses a complete thought. An independent clause is a clause that expresses a complete thought. So when you look at this sentence, you will notice that we have two clauses here. This is the first independent clause, which is I love rice. It is independent because without the rest of this sentence, I love rice can stand alone as a sentence. You can say I love rice and not feel guilty that you have expressed an incomplete thought, because I love rice is complete. You can say I love rice and put full stop. So that is one thought. The second thought in this compound sentence is I eat beans every day. I eat beans every day. So I love rice, which is one independent clause, is joined to the other independent clause by this but. So when you remove but and you put full stop here, you would have two sentences, or I should say you would have two independent clauses that can stand on their own. But we have merely used this word here, but, to unite these two independent clauses. And so it qualifies as a compound sentence because it has two independent clauses. Another example is I like enjoyment. So I spend my money on good things of life. Full stop. I like enjoyment, so I spend my money on good things of life. When you look at this, there are two independent clauses here. I like enjoyment is one, and I spend my money on good things of life is two. And these two sentences are united by so. It therefore means that you have two independent clauses united by one word, so. When you see sentences like this, it should immediately come to your mind that a compound sentence is being witnessed. Now we shall look at the third type of sentence, and it is the complex sentence. A complex sentence is an independent clause independent clause joined by one or more dependent clauses. One or more dependent clauses. So this is the formula for complex sentences. It is an independent clause plus one or more dependent clauses. You know what an independent clause is? It is a clause that expresses a complete idea. On the other hand, a dependent clause is a clause which cannot stand alone. It is a clause which lacks either a subject or a verb. I repeat, a dependent clause is a clause which lacks either a subject or a verb. An example of a complex sentences which adheres to this formula is after eating lunch, my brother went home to his family. Yes, after eating lunch, my brother went home to his family. When you look at this sentence, it has this, which is a dependent clause. After eating lunch, it is dependent because it does not have a verb. No, it has a verb, but it doesn't have a subject. This is the verb, eaten. So it has a verb, but it doesn't have a subject. And so that makes it incomplete. That makes it a dependent clause. So it depends on this second sentence to stand. After eating lunch cannot stand alone as a clause, as a sentence. But then the second part, my brother went home to his family. If you erase this first part, which is after eating lunch, if you erase it, the second part can stand alone. My brother went home to his family. That is a short sentence. So I can come to you and say, my brother went home to his family yesterday. Or my brother went home to his family. I can answer you in that manner. If you ask me, hello, Bob, where did your brother go yesterday? I can say, oh, my brother went home to his family. It is a sentence that can stand alone. So it is independent clause to the extent that it can stand alone. So the addition to a dependent clause is what makes this sentence a complex sentence. Lastly, we have the compound complex sentence. Compound complex sentence. And one thing you need to know is that a compound complex sentence has two independent clauses and at least one dependent clause. Here I come again. A compound complex sentence has two independent clauses and at least one dependent clause. It means you may have one or two dependent clauses in a compound complex sentence. An example is this: after my friend returned from work. After my friend returned from work. This here is a dependent clause. Like I said initially, when you have a clause that starts with after, when, before, if, so, you should know that that clause is dependent. It cannot express a complete thought. It has to depend on an independent clause to make sense. It has to depend on an additional clause to make sense. So this clause here does not make sense because it has after. After my friend returned from work, he joined us in the sitting room. He joined us in the sitting room. This here is another clause, but it is an independent clause. And then you have one more independent clause, which is we had some drinks. So you have three clauses in this sentence. After my friend returned from work, he joined us in the sitting room and we had some drinks. This and this are two independent clauses. And this first clause here is a dependent clause. And remember the formula. When you have two independent clauses and one or more dependent clause, that sentence is a compound complex sentence. With this, we've come to the end of types of sentences. Now, and finally, we shall look at sentence elements. Sentence element usually comes before types of sentences. But then, let's assess the elements as they are. There are 5 distinct units that must be present, that can be present in a sentence, not must. There are 5 units that can be present in a sentence. And those units are SVCOA, SVCOA, subject, verb, object, subject, verb, complement, object, and adverbial. Subject, verb, complement, object, and adverbial. These are the 5. Of these 5, 2 are inevitable. 2 of the elements of sentence are inevitable. It means you cannot avoid them. By this I mean that every sentence must contain a subject and a verb. And that is why it is usually presented in this manner. Look at what I wrote here. SV outside the paragraph and COA inside the paragraph. The reason is because a sentence must have a subject and a verb. But then it is optional as to whether there should be complement, object, and adverbial in a sentence. Some sentences do have these 3 elements, but some don't. And in any case, the existence of these 3 elements does not negate the potency or the correctness of a sentence. Do you understand? Moving on, you may be wondering, of course you know what a subject is. A subject is the who or the what. A subject is the person that performs an action. The subject is the doer, the do or the what, the he, the she, or the it. That is what a subject is. On the other hand, a verb is the action. For example, slap is an action. Hit, kick, push. These are actions. That's what verb is. The complement, on the other hand, gives information about the subject or object. The object itself refers to the recipient of an action. The adverbial refers to the how, when, or where an action takes place. So like you may want to say an action takes place every day. Tony goes to school every day. Every day in that sentence is an adverbial. Onyeka comes to see me every Friday. Every Friday is an adverbial because it states when. Onyeka comes to see me every Friday states when, so it's an adverbial. It explains the how, the when, and the where of a sentence. With this table, the elements of sentence are explained better. For example, you have this first rule, which is subject, you have verb, you have object. Object is divided into two. You have complement, and then you have adverbial. So when we say Onye fainted, Onye here is the verb, is the subject, fainted is the verb. And that ends the sentence. It's a complete sentence, even though it has only subject and verb. On the other hand, you may have a sentence that has a subject, a verb, object, and then adverbial. Like Ajibola gave the girl an orange last week. Ajibola is the subject, gave is the verb, the girl is the object, direct, or in some cases primary object, and orange is the indirect or secondary object. Last week is the adverbial, meaning how frequently, meaning when, what time did he give the girl an orange. So adverbial is what this says. And then of course, the last sentence we have here says, the boy is an intelligent student. Don't forget I said complement refers to an information about the subject or object. Complement gives an information about a subject or object. So when we say here that the boy is an intelligent student, an intelligent here is a complement because it gives information about the subject, which is the boy. With this, we've come to sentence elements, and I do sincerely hope that you understand. Thank you.